The number one mistake seniors over 60 make when they're trying to shrink visceral fat, that deep belly fat wrapped around your organs, is chasing crunches and sit-ups. Not because ab exercises are useless, but because visceral fat doesn't respond to spot targeting. It responds to something almost nobody tells you about until it's too late. Hello, health champions. I'm Dr. Elias Hartman. I'm going to show you exactly which two types of movement shrink visceral fat fastest, how long it actually takes to see real change, and the one surprising finding, that walking alone, without any diet change, was not enough to move the needle in a real clinical trial. Before we go further, drop a comment right now with just your age. I want to see who's watching, because visceral fat behaves very differently at 62 than it does at 72 or 82. And if you've ever looked in the mirror and felt frustrated that your belly seems to grow, even though your weight on the scale barely moves, add the word frustrated to your comment. Let's start with visceral adipose tissue. That's the medical term for the fat that sits deep in your abdomen, wrapped around your liver, intestines, and pancreas, instead of just sitting under your skin. Think of it like packing material stuffed inside a moving box, squeezing your organs, instead of bubble wrap sitting on the outside. This matters enormously after 60 because that deep fat is metabolically active. It pumps out inflammatory chemicals around the clock, and it's tied to higher risk for type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Next, let's talk about what's happening with your muscle. As we age, we naturally lose muscle mass, a process called sarcopenia. Picture your muscle as your body's furnace. Less furnace means fewer calories burned just sitting still. That's why a researcher comparing exercise types in older adults with obesity found that aerobic exercise alone, resistance exercise alone, and the combination of both all reduced visceral fat during weight loss. But the people doing combined aerobic and resistance training preserved more muscle and function while losing that fat. There's also a second factor that most people, and honestly, many doctors, don't realize. Walking, even briskly, may not be enough on its own. A controlled trial out of Sweden put older adults with central obesity through 10 weeks of vigorous web-based exercise. Fat mass came down. But visceral fat itself didn't significantly shrink in that 10-week window without a dietary component. Your body protects that deep fat stubbornly. It doesn't let go easily, especially without combining movement with what's on your plate. Let me tell you exactly what happens to a 68-year-old man who comes to see his doctor for his annual checkup. His weight on the scale has barely changed in 2 years. His doctor tells him, "Your weight's stable, that's good, keep doing what you're doing." But nobody measured his waist circumference. Nobody mentioned that his muscle is quietly shrinking while his visceral fat is quietly growing. The scale stays flat, but what's underneath the number is shifting in the wrong direction. This scenario plays out thousands of times a week across the country, and it is preventable if we understand that the scale alone hides the real story. Now here's the part that's going to sound counterintuitive, and I need you to stay with me, because this is where everything changes. For decades, we've been told that any exercise that burns calories is roughly equal for losing belly fat. But a randomized controlled trial out of the journals of gerontology, comparing 160 older adults with obesity during a structured weight loss program, found something different. Combining aerobic and resistance training reduced visceral and intermuscular fat. That's fat infiltrating your muscle tissue itself, more effectively than either type of exercise alone. Most doctors still haven't translated this into specific advice for their older patients. Most patients haven't heard it. That gap between what science shows and what's happening in real medical practice is costing real people real quality of life. Now, I want to be completely transparent with you. This is not a quick fix, and it will not work the same for everyone. The clinical trials I just mentioned ran for months, not days, and they paired exercise with structured calorie reduction. Exercise by itself, in some trials, wasn't enough. There's no version of this where visceral fat disappears in a week. But here's what the evidence does show. Combining moderate aerobic activity with resistance training, alongside modest caloric reduction, is one of the most consistently supported approaches for reducing this specific type of fat in older adults. Here are 3 specific actions to start this week. First, measure your waist circumference tonight, at belly button level, standing relaxed. Write the number down. That's your real baseline, not the scale. Second, aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity per week, spread across 3 to 5 days. That's roughly 30 minutes, 5 days a week, because that's the dose used in the research showing visceral fat reduction in older adults. Third, add resistance training twice a week, body weight squats, resistance bands, or light dumbbells, because the trials that preserved muscle while losing visceral fat all included this. Remeasure your waist in 4 weeks, not your weight. You now know something that most people, including many healthcare providers, don't fully understand. The scale can lie to you while visceral fat quietly grows. Combining aerobic and resistance training works better than either alone for this specific kind of fat. And real change takes weeks of consistency, not days. Most importantly, you now have the knowledge to measure what actually matters and act on it. Your body is not working against you, it is trying to protect you. Once you understand that, everything changes, because now you're not fighting your body, you're finally working with it. In my next video, I'm going to cover the 3 blood markers that reveal hidden visceral fat risk even when your weight looks normal, and the 2 common breakfast habits that quietly feed it without you realizing. If this information helped you, please share it with someone you love who is over 60, and subscribe to this channel because my mission is bringing you research-based senior health information that is practical, honest, and potentially life-changing. I'll see you in the next one.